Welcome, everyone. Woo! Woo! I'm Jessica, and Janae is right here. And we'd like to welcome you to the 7th Constellation. We are so happy to bring together these readers, Christopher Diaz, Blake Hausman, and Janice Lee. And we're happy to bring together all of you, this audience in this room, and those who are joining us via live stream. Did we turn the camera back on, the sound on? Okay, sweet. And as we gather this space, it's important for me as a settler to remember that we are gathered tonight on the unceded traditional homelands of Multnomah, Cathlamet, Clackamas, Tumwater, and Watlala Cascade bands of the Chinook, as well as the Tualatin, Kalapuya, and many other recognized and unrecognized Indigenous nations of the Columbia River. And we say this not as empty words, but as an invitation or a reminder to learn more about the specific broken promises on which the state and city rest, and to find ways to concretely and materially support Indigenous sovereignty and the return of land. We say all of this also with the intention to make good use of this time. And before we get started, we want to thank Lance of Tin House and Melissa and Tyler of Bishop and Wild for their generosity in opening the space to us. And we want to thank the Regional Arts and Culture Council for a grant that is supporting this reading series and defraying some of our costs, which is awesome. And I think we're compensating readers tonight for the very first time. I don't know if we told you that, readers. I hope we did, but we're telling you now. And thank you to each of you for your consideration in honoring our COVID policy and for looking out for each other. You may be here because you know one of the readers or you know one of us, and that's a really good reason. And we also hope you come back. We took a month off in July, and I have certainly missed this time together. We are making a transition in September to gathering on the 2nd Thursday of the month rather than the 3rd. So we've been pretty regular in the 3rd Thursday, and we're shifting to the 2nd for Tin House related reasons. So that'll be a change that we will be abundantly communicating on the Instagram. We have signs at the entry where you can sign up to join our mailing list. If you do that, I will email you exactly twice a month to let you know who our readers are and if there are any announcements. So we're so happy you're here. Without further ado, welcome Christopher Diaz. Okay. I'm sorry, Janae still has to introduce you. I'm out of practice. Hold up. That was really bad. Janae.
Hi, everybody. So excited to see you here. Thank you for coming. It's amazing what a month away feels like. Oh my God, we haven't done this in a long time. That was only a month. I'm so glad to be back. It's so nice to see all of you. I'm very excited to introduce Christopher Diaz, and I guess Jessica is also.
Yeah.
I've been watching some videos on YouTube of Christopher doing some poetry performance, and he is amazing. So I'm thrilled that he gets to open for us tonight. Christopher Diaz, him, is a Chamorro poet, freelance photographer, and military veteran. He has been featured by NBC News, the Smithsonian Asian Pacific American Center, Poets and Writers, and more. He is a 2-time Grand Slam champion of Houston Slam Poetry Team right about now, which many of us are familiar with. So that's super awesome, which ranked 5th in the nation in 2018. He has previously taught poetry with the nonprofit Writers in the Schools, and too often spends his time making fake album covers with pictures of his 3 dogs. You are in good company, lots of dog lovers here. Thank you, Christopher. So excited to have you.
My timer started. Can y'all just indulge me? It's a tradition for any time I read in front of any audience. And I picked up from the Southern poet Joe B. Will y'all clap if you are sitting next to somebody beautiful? That's everybody. That's everybody. Don't make it awkward. That's like super awkward. If you're trying to flirt with someone, you can like ham it up. And also, can we give a round of applause for Jessica and Janae? Like, thank you so much for organizing this. Okay, I am going to read some poems. And the first poem is a short one, and it is titled, "To My Dogs Who Are Barking at What They Can't See." The difference between us is, I know why which noises come when. Hydraulics and crush of the garbage truck on Tuesdays. The bus stop squealing out after school freedom. I wish I could tell you we are not in danger, but I don't blame your body for not trusting this language. Yes, my ego is sensitive. I am sensitive. Also, I didn't mention this at the start. I don't know how Blake and Janice feel, but I come from the spoken word community, slam community. We very much honor folks like snapping, making guttural noises during the reading. Whatever energy you give me, I promise to give back tenfold. So please, yes. So please feel free. Yeah. Okay, this next poem is titled, "I Moved, Then Moved Again." And it's after the poet Cheyenne Avila, which takes two of their original lines. And one of the lines is the opening line, which is, "You will want to remember this." And another line is, "I dream of rivers." You will want to remember this. Missing the bus, the link, the laces you replaced, frayed from rain and snow, the drivers, the tunnel, the walk, and then the walk. Across a new city, into your new job, learning Excel and looking up how to break a lease. The dusk that came too early, the voice of your mother, of your sister, when you told them you were fine, when you knew they did not believe you. Songs on your commute and stairwells to the surface, every lyric, step, and street name seared into your brain, wed to your story of moving out west, only to return the ring, of leaving all you knew, only to be left in a pattern of memory, scene after scene where maybe she changed her mind, or maybe your depression left enough to make her stay. Each time, it does not matter. Each time I wake up on the bus, on the bridge, on the walk, past my cubicle, past the bathroom, back in bed, staring in the shower, sitting in the kitchen. When you lose someone, you lose yourself. In every moment you try not to remember where you were the first time you said their name, the last time they said yours. I dream of rivers all running away, and this is how I know I cannot be done. I wake up again and I have to be the river, reaching or longing, moving at minimum to anywhere but here, to somewhere I am different, and the weather gets colder and colder and quiet. Then every leaf asks me to wait a little longer. My mother is afraid I will do something bad, and I want to remind her that I am good at being alone. Instead, I tell her that I have been eating, that work has been better, that I am sorry. I have to go. I have to sort these boxes. I haven't even started. Okay, this next poem is some weird shit. So I hope.
Weird shit?
Yeah, some weird shit. Okay. The title of it is called "Whoever is in Charge Keeps Playing the Same Song," and it just goes into the first line of the poem. Whoever is in charge keeps playing the same song over the speakers in this safe way where you are stuck in a line, forming down the toothpaste aisle on the Wednesday before Thanksgiving, thinking staying alive is so much longer than you remember. And yes, you took too long looking, but you are the last person they should have sent because you don't even live here anymore. Rehearsing your defense, rearranging your lines, swapping out which words will work fastest to remind them that everything used to be in a different place here. Your chest and chin pleading with 3 cans each of evaporated and condensed milk, wishing you knew the difference or had let them teach you the recipe, or at least grabbed a basket when you came in here, telling yourself to keep the receipt. And without warning, the wall of winter green and icy blue, sharp, perfectly stacked boxes are shining at you and only you, like peacocks in a library of books you never read, whispering like all your aunties, second pew at the viewing, like no one rearranged anything here, and they have the receipts, and aren't you looking just like your father, rehearsing your spilling with nothing to hold it, pleading with who sent you longer than you can remember, and you should have left sooner, and you would know if you visited that these things are kept where they have always stayed, that these things live where you have always been living, questioning what you picked up, asking what to put back, and you are next in line and still don't know the difference. Okay, I got a couple more poems for y'all, and I'm gonna call an audible. A friend was just asking me, do you know what you're gonna read before the reading? And I think most poets say, I don't know. But I really appreciate the energy tonight, so I'm gonna ask y'all to be a little bit participatory with me. If anyone knows, and I think I heard someone say weird shit earlier, in like the spoken word or slam community, if you let the audience know that what you're reading is something new, the audience usually says new shit, right? So we'll practice it, okay? So I'll say new shit, and then all of y'all will say new shit. Okay. So this poem is new shit.
New shit.
Oh, let's do it again, and I'll get into it. Okay. This poem is new shit.
New shit.
1, I am not a fan of list poems. B, this is because I'm bad with numbers. 3, I hate when poets try to draw some dramatic conclusion from random facts prefaced by the rhetorical, did you know? 4, did you know that guinea pigs have an average lifespan of 4 years? As the most often tested animal, constantly ingesting experiments, they are literally and consistently producing new shit. The panther chameleon does not live longer than a year. Their skin is the daily definition of new shit. Crawl on a rock, new shit. Jump on a branch, new shit. Piggyback on another chameleon, new shit. A dragonfly is on this earth for 6 months tops, and every time I've ever seen a dragonfly, they're fucking another dragonfly, gambling on love, embracing intimacy, and being a pro at creating new shit. But at just 24 hours, I forgot to tell y'all, the response is only at the beginning. I'm so sorry. This has happened before too, and I just didn't let them know. So it's part of the shtick. At just 24 hours, though, the mayfly has the shortest lifespan on Earth. And I think about all the things I did not do in the past day because of all the ways my anxiety disorder did not give me permission to fail. All the ways my depression did not think me good or good enough or just enough. The internet says that mayfly's sole purpose is to reproduce. One article said, and I knew shit y'all not, after they are born, they form groups and dance together on all available surfaces. So if y'all can't tell by now, this is an ode to new shit. To all my fellow first drafts who put down their perfection long enough to dance, this is a celebration of all the times you weren't sure, but did the thing anyway. Like that time you tried lobster before you knew you were allergic to lobster. Or that time in 7th grade when you finally sank a game-winning shot on the other team's basket, at least I made it, Pops. Or when you read this new shit poem at the Constellation reading series, but you did not know where to pause, or what lines you should deliver as a question, or whether people were laughing with you or at you or not at all. And this was just a reminder that sometimes it's okay to shine even if you feel unpolished, that it's okay to read your poem if the work ain't committed to memory, so long as you remember to stay committed to your work, that bringing me into existence was once a scary thought of my parents, but going to therapy was once a scary thought that convinced me to keep existing, that sooner or later you will watch a fire die if you do not fan its flames. So if your body has been begging you to love or to write or to get up on a mic and make something and share anything new, I promise it'll be worth it, even if you think it's shitty. All right, I got one last. I'm so sorry, y'all. Y'all are like, this shit keeps going. I thought there was a pause. I'm sorry. That happened before, honestly. I need to get better with giving instructions. I'm going to move this a little bit. We are gathered here today, and I am grateful for the gathering.
Attention, power is now.
Is this the mic?
Yeah.
We can turn it off to conserve. Yeah?
I'll be right here.
Okay.
Thank you, and I'm sorry.
No, it's fine. We are gathered here today, and I am grateful for the gathering. Grateful for your clumsy, tired, and still trying eyes, the way you look for reasons to stay, when not all days are good days, but life is better with you in it, I admit. And sometimes I am looking for a sad and glorious avalanche. I am waiting for myself to collapse, and any bookstore that helps the Hollywood angle make me look interesting. I try so hard to walk like living luggage packed too tightly, but I have a safe and boring job, and a roof over my head that has yet to leak, and a cold pile of clean laundry. And on my to-do list was returning a shirt to Target I knew would not fit, but brought home anyway. And years ago, I would have sat in stupid shame, but tonight I say be proud that you let shame speak, then asked it to take a seat. Proud to notice that how you do small things is how you do most things. And my mountains of regret all started with a step in the right direction for somebody else. I hold my wrists like Dorothy's red shoes and notice I cut my nails too quickly yesterday. You must cut yours too, and maybe each time they go back in bad angles. Everyone watches how their steps change direction, but not everyone notices how those steps can form a circle. Someone told someone else, who then told me we grieve in cycles. That you can walk the same street, but the sun will never be the same. Another planet asked me my age, and I am old enough to do the math and still not be quite sure. And this is how you know to trust me eventually. We all turn yellow, either in the belly or in the way we rise each morning. I move to find the remedy, then realize it is the moving that makes me whole again. We all know people we don't talk to anymore. And I might be a tired engine, but I still bring someone joy. Sometimes I am the someone. Other times I am the joy. I am still an acrobat with bad knees who does not regret the show each night. Each night the audience are acrobats who love me back. Tell me of your mental gymnastics, of the spells you tried on yourself that did not work, and I will tell you that a love language is still a language. That I look to words and they look right back at me. It is possible that you are a list of ingredients, but we're given all the wrong recipes. So try again with me right now. Every breath, a brief history on how to be still and still be moving. The new rule is we will not explain ourselves, only share our itchy wrists that look for walls to carve on or into or out of, the bridges we chose to burn even though they brought us here. I ask if what I am feeling is flood, or if I am just used to everything rushing. Ask my avalanche why I hurried. Where it was I wanted to be so badly back then, only to see the messages I missed. All the signs that said here. You are nowhere else but here. Thanks so much, y'all.
we're doing a consultation, yes? Is that gonna help?
Yes.
Sweet, yes, please. Is it a battery issue?
Yes.
This has happened before.
Yes.
It's a great time to use the bathroom.
It's
It's not a battery issue, it's a plug,
Charger
it's a
issue.
charger issue, and we've been through it before. How do you feel about going myself? You feel okay about it? Yeah. Okay. I think it's a better solution.
Let's do it.
Yeah.
Yeah. It was better actually.
Yeah. We may be able to solve it by your, yeah. We need to try to kind of, hang on, let's do a quick consultation. So, is there any chance of finding the cord?
We've tried to check.
What's that?
We've tried before.
We tried. His lamp wasn't here.
Rifled his office.
Do we have a phone number?
No?
That might solve it right now. Thank you. That is the,
Remember last time you plugged it in?
the mic's not charged. Tell them the mic's not charged. The speaker's not charged.
Remember last time you plugged it in?
We also. We were
I
guessing.
like that, I don't know the very first one. No, not the dog, that one was-
Thanks for your patience, everyone. We expect to be back.
Everybody has a good vote. I've got one of these in my car. I just kept it shut. Let me go get that.
What did we get? We also are not.
It was a little black.
What is this?
Is that what church Hold
It's not it's a story that's writing itself.
By design.
Okay. So that's not that thing, but I didn't know what you guys getting. We can go on the wall. We can go wall to that. Did we do this before?
We were covering a lot. So I thought it was going through different seasons. Oh, yeah. Okay. This is short, but it's great.
I mean, let's.
All right. If it starts cutting out on you, we're gonna turn it off. Because it won't recover. I'll just keep saying, it'll come in. I may turn it down a little. All right. Try it. All right.
Okay.
Okay. All right. Is that on? I can't tell.
I did turn this off.
Oh.
There we go. Okay, that was it. Okay, now we're back. Thank you. Fingers crossed that our solution has worked, and thank you for your patience, everyone. Blake Hausman, him, is an enrolled citizen of the Cherokee Nation of Oklahoma. He lives with his family in Portland, Oregon, where he teaches English, reading, writing, and Native American studies at PCC. He also teaches Indigenous studies online with OSU. Blake's first novel, Riding the Trail of Tears, is a surrealistic revisitation of the Cherokee removal. And it is available right back there. He is nearing completion of a second novel, a new work of Indigenous futurism. Blake is also my really good friend, an amazing person to work with, and someone who lifts up everyone around him, except the bad people. And is also a really good dad. And I'm so happy that, I'm not happy about that, but I'm really happy that Blake is going to be reading with us tonight. Welcome, Blake.
Thank you, Jessica, for that really brilliant introduction. Appreciate it. Thank you, folks, for being here. This is off, right? That's okay. You can hear me back there?
Yeah.
All right. Okay. I'm gonna get loud. So I've been working on this second novel for a decade now, and I've written several stories in the process of working on this book, because sometimes it just helps me process through some stuff that isn't in the book, but this features a character named Cedar who is mentioned very briefly in the book. This is an expansion of this character, and this is fiction. It's called A Recommendation from the Membership Committee. Cedar was not late to the council meeting, but she wasn't 15 minutes early either, which is what she preferred. No, today she had only 5 minutes left to set everything up. The council table was already half full. Hey, said Marla, tapping Cedar on the arm gently. We good? For sure, we're good. Great, said Marla, leaning in closer, but I mean, are you good? Never better, said Cedar. I don't think I believe you. I don't think I believe me either, replied Cedar. Let's talk soon. Okay, said Marla, soon. And she took her seat next to Cedar, who turned the projector on, got her notes in order, and pulled up both of the necessary files in less than 30 seconds. The old analog-looking clock on the wall hit 10 a.m., start time, but she knew better than to start right on time, because this was, after all, supposed to be a council work meeting and not open to the public. And at least a quarter of the council was late as per usual. In her peripherals, Cedar tracked a couple cars pulling into the lot. All the usual suspects, but where was Chuggy? They were usually no more than 2 minutes late, and here it was, 5 minutes after the hour. Cedar could not start a council meeting without the treasurer. But fortunately, after a couple minutes passed, Chuggy stepped in, bunch of papers in hand, too. Well, that's different, Cedar thought. Chuggy never brings papers to a meeting. Still, a few empty seats at the table. Cedar didn't want to wait any longer, and the meeting started sharply 7 minutes after the hour. Began with the usual procedural stuff: the opening welcome, the prayers and blessings, the intros, the checking ins, the ratifying of minutes, the approving of agendas, and the obligatory calls for questions or updates. Simon raised a hand on the other side of the table, and Cedar called his name. We have a report from the membership committee, said Simon, an elder with a sort of distinguished look. I don't think we have that on the agenda for today, Cedar replied. Not yet, Simon answered, but we have a proposal, and we think the council needs to hear it out. Do you want to make a motion to add it to the agenda, asked Cedar. Devin, a younger person who was sitting next to Simon, stood up, said, we're done. We're done. We're done. We're done with blood quantum. Aren't we all, said Chuggy. We know it's not indigenous, continued Devin, that it always was and always will be a settler fantasy to begin with. We know we need something better, and Devin paused, giving Cedar a chance to interrupt, but Cedar just listened. Why interrupt this? And we think we got it. You got it, she asked. We think so. Cedar looked at the agenda, took a sip from her water bottle. Oh, my God. glanced at the clock. Can you summarize the recommendation in like 5 minutes? Sure. Here it is. 12-second pause. Indian Health Service. What exactly do you mean? Said Cedar. We mean, replied Devin, how many relatives do you have working for the Indian Health Service? Is this like a rhetorical question? No, literally, how many relatives you got working for IHS? Your aunties, your uncles, your cousins, your nieces, your nephews, count them up. How many are working for the IHS? Devin paused for dramatic effect, and after a few seconds, murmurs of conversation began to hum around the table. Cedar felt genuine curiosity filtering through the room. Shooky focused on the stack of papers with a pen in hand, but they didn't actually write anything with the pen yet. 5, said Marla, and everyone turned to look at her. 5 what? Someone's asked. 5 relatives who work for the IHS, she answered, which is actually up from 4 last month because my niece, my brother's kid, Shoshana, they just started working part-time at the clinic. Marla glanced at Cedar, that clinic where we both used to work back when we were in school. Simon smiled, and how many? He said, pausing to swallow something. How many relatives do you have? Like, total? Asked Marla. Total number of relatives. Native people, Indian relatives. You mean like tribally enrolled relatives or unenrolled as well? Precisely, said Devin. That's the question we're still working on. And it's why, Simon glanced around the table, why we need your input. But even with this question unanswered, we in the membership committee have come to believe that this is the answer. The answer to blood quantum, he said enthusiastically. This, my friends, this could be the new fraction. Cedar was never entirely sure why they even had a membership committee in the first place. What really was the point? This was a leadership council at an urban community center, not a tribal government. And all of their various tribes have their own registration and enrollment departments, which have existed for decades, for centuries actually. So it was never entirely clear to Cedar what the membership committee was for. But she generally tolerated them because as she learned early in life and as she's continued to learn every year, if someone wants to do something to contribute, you don't push them away. And in Cedar's mind, that would always be true, even if what they were contributing was vague at times. So forgive me for asking simple questions, Cedar said, but can you just walk me through this? You want me to walk with you? No. I want you to walk me through the details. I want you to explain this to me like you're talking to a bunch of third graders who've never heard about this before. Just what is this answer to exactly? Fraction, said Devin. If you're native, you've got a fraction, right? It's on your CDIB. You put it on all the forms you fill out. It's everywhere. You can't escape it. You're stuck with that fraction your whole damn life. And there's no way you can change it, even if we all know it was a lowball number in the first place, because some white dude, some government grifter back in the day, thought that your great-great-grandpa looked like a half-blood when everybody actually knew there was a full-blood. And, added Simon, I think we all know about the psychological harm that certain fractions can cause for people. Like you, Marla. What about me? Asked Marla. Well, you're an 8th, right? Marla paused and said, per my CDIB, yes. That's 1/8. Yes, not exactly the biggest number ever recorded now, wouldn't you say? Asked Devin. Easy on that, said Cedar. The agitation was clear. Are you going somewhere with this? Asked Marla. Absolutely. The point is this. You, Marla, you've got 5 out of how many people? How many uncles and nieces and everybody in your family working for IHS? Like 20 people, maybe. Sure. Excuse me. Call it 20, Marla answered. Okay, that's 5/20. That's a quarter then. Doesn't that sound better? Okay, Marla said. Actually, it might be more like 11 or 12 people if we're talking like immediate families. So how small should I go with the denominator? Great, answered Devin. Let's call it 12. So now we're at 5/12. That's nearly a half. Cedar interjected. I'm still trying to follow the thinking here, but she was cut off. I strongly believe, Simon cleared his throat, that the third graders will get this. Oh, they'll get it, agreed Devin, because this, my friends, this is what tribal sovereignty looks like. Or better yet, said Simon, this is what it could look like. Okay, said Cedar, thinking not only was this ludicrous, but this was not at all what tribal sovereignty looks like. So your proposal for a new fraction system involves a proportion of relatives someone has working for IHS. Yes. She wanted to tell them that this might be the most ridiculous thing she'd ever heard in a council meeting, but Simon was an elder of sorts. And now, said Cedar, just bear with me as I try to unpack everything you suggested. So this means if, let's say I have a BIA blood quantum of 1/16, but I have an IHS family quantum of whatever we're calling it, 3/8, then I would now have a higher fraction than I did before. Yes, that is correct. and this will be a good thing because I'll feel better about myself. Chuggy, who everyone knew was full blood, raised their hand and then spoke and said, I think it's just sad that we still use these fractions to feel any certain way about ourselves. It's just numbers that don't mean anything. There's nothing traditional about it at all, and never has been. Chuggy, said Devin, while I do, of course, appreciate your dismissal of the colonialist system of quantifying our indigeneity, I would like to challenge the idea that these numbers don't mean anything. For example, remember that one boy a couple years ago who everyone thought was just a light-skinned mixed blood, but then he got that 23andMe business and realized that actually he wasn't native after all, but was just a white boy who'd been adopted and never told. Of course, said Chuggy, it was very sad. I'll remember that. Well, fractions seemed to matter to that one, didn't they? And Simon stood up. What my colleagues on the membership committee are trying to say, cleared his throat, is that the way of documenting relationships, of quantifying our nativeness, if we do it this way, it is more traditional than the blood quantum because it's about relationships. It's about who you are in relation to your people and just how much your people are invested in the health of our community. Thank you, said Marla. I do want to thank you for trying to quadruple my fractions here, but come on. There are lots of ways that people are invested in this community don't involve working for the Indian Health Service. And yet, said Devin, you got 500 people on the payroll over there. What if they're retired? Asked someone. Can you still count them? Another good question, answered Simon, and we need your input on that too. Well, what if there's federal layoffs? Asked Marla. Or someone gets fired. Does my fraction go down then? And how soon, asked someone else, how quickly do you need to change your fraction? Like every time there's a change in the IHS staffing? Great questions, answered Devin, great questions. And as we have documented in painstaking detail in those files that Chuggy has over there, Devin pointed at the papers in front of Chuggy and everyone turned to look. We have an answer to that as well, we think. Once a year, said Simon. Your fraction gets updated once a year unless, that is, your number goes up. As was the case with your niece, Marla, because somebody gets hired. It can go up at any point during the year, affirmed Devin, but it can only go down once a year, at most. Okay now, said Marla, I'm sorry to rain on the party here, but isn't this still just participating in the same old system of making people feel like their personhood is reducible to some silly fraction? Like, I'm sorry, but we are whole people. We've always been whole people. Marla pointed at someone across the table. You're a whole person. And she pointed at the person next to them. You're a whole person. She did this to 4 people too before opening her arms as if she could hug them all, saying, we're all whole people. And thinking in these fractions is just a big part of the problems the settlers gave us. They cooked this way up of thinking so they could erase us, so we would erase ourselves. And now doesn't your solution just like substitute one fraction for another? Doesn't it just substitute one problem for another? One way of self-erasure for another? 7 seconds of silence. Well, answered Devin, no, we don't think so, because if you're really native, come on, then you got somebody working in your family, working for the IHS. Simon leaned back in his chair and said, tell me, is there anybody at this table who does not have any relatives that work for the Indian Health Service? Of course, no one answered the question because they all had somebody working for the IHS. It was kind of inevitable. Cedar counted her people, but wait, how many did she actually have? Was she forgetting some? Was her Indian Health Service relative quantum actually lower than she thought it was? What would be her new fraction in this proposed new order? Would she be more or less native now for this new and ridiculous equation? She honestly didn't know. She would need to call some people or pull some employment records. It would not be particularly easy to find out. And this continued Simon, think of how much easier this will be for some of our citizens. Like you, Alex. Everyone turned their heads. Remind us of your blood quantum again. You're seriously asking me this, said Alex. As serious as the state senator who wants a slice of our gaming revenue, said Devin. What's your fraction? What's your denominator? You know what it is. I appreciate your trust in my ability to remember things, Alex, but unfortunately the fact is that your fraction has way too many numbers even for me to commit to memory. Well, what is it again? 457 1,024ths. Thank you, Alex, for the record. You just said 457 over 1,024. Not the easiest number to say. And at this point, Cedar wondered if this conversation, since it was never approved to be on the meeting's agenda, was actually being recorded. Alex was, after all, the note taker, and they didn't seem to be typing anything, so it was quite possible the entire conversation was completely off the record. And because we're cousins, continued Devin, I know that you have an IHS relative quantum that's more like 3/5, so it's not only higher, it's like easier to say. It struck Cedar right then that after having been indoctrinated their entire lives to imagining fractional identities in terms of even numbers, halves, quarters, eighths, sixteenths, 30-seconds, and every multiple of 2 all the way up to 2048, this would be a drastic reorientation of how everyone would imagine themselves with the old pizza metaphor, or the old pie metaphor, or the old whatever awkwardly food-related metaphor someone might use that involves an even number of slices. Like, what would a pizza look like if it was cut into 5 pieces, so 5 slices, or 7 slices? And who would actually want their pizza sliced into 7s? It just wasn't practical, at least not for the people doing the slicing. What about the financials? Asked Marla. Ah, yes, the financials, answered Devin. You mean, Simon followed, like applying for grants and stuff? Yeah, said Marla, with like an emphasis on the and stuff. We are well aware of the need to anticipate the financials with this, said Devin, which is why we provided Chuggy, the esteemed treasurer of our beloved council, with a printout of what we anticipate will be the financial impacts for individuals as well as for the organization as a whole. Cedar turned to Chuggy, who didn't respond at first. Solid 10 seconds of silence. Then Chuggy sat up in their chair, took a deep breath, exhaling slow and deliberate. 10 more seconds of silence. It might take a while to go through this, said Chuggy, raising the papers in a bundle, dropping them softly on the tabletop. The top 2 pages slid down the table and stopped when they touched Cedar's water bottle. Cedar straightened her back and locked into that posture, which for some reason always helped her when she needed to say something non-committal in an official context. I want to personally thank the membership committee, Cedar said, for bringing this topic to the council table. She looked around the table and then through the window out into the parking lot. You're right. We all know that blood quantum is problematic, and we appreciate you pushing back on it. Trying to imagine something else. You folks are speaking from the heart and working for the people. Thank you. But, she glanced at Marla, the potential instability of having our people that constantly change their fractions, what that might do to some people's eligibility for things, well, that's something we got to be real about now. So, especially as we try to look out for our elders, most vulnerable. She didn't bother to state the obvious, which was that as an intertribal urban community organization, they actually didn't have a say in the first place. So, asked Simon, are we adding this to the agenda for today's meeting? Let's have Chuggy analyze your documents, Cedar said, and we'll aim to put this on the agenda for our next meeting, but not yet. We've still got a lot we need to get done today. Cedar felt something drop in her stomach. She owed Chuggy big time, at least one dinner, maybe a few, and now they were well over 30 minutes behind schedule. She was half tempted to drop a smart-ass comment about how the average time one tends to run late might be a more accurate measure of one's indigeneity, but she didn't say it out loud. Someone might take her seriously. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Christopher. We were so preoccupied with Mike. We didn't get a chance to like reapplaud Christopher. Thank you, Christopher. And thank you, Blake. And I think are we switching units?
We're trying that.
Okay,
This one looks fully charged.
that one looks fully charged.
Turn that on.
Are we on?
It's not on. Turn that
Is the mic
on.
on?
Yeah.
Mike is on.
Should be on.
Doesn't look like.
Yeah,
It's on there.
Maybe I turned it down. There we go.
Yeah, okay, now on.
Okay.
I am so delighted to welcome Janice Lee. Woo! Janice, she, they, is a Korean-American writer, teacher, spiritual scholar, and shamanic healer. She's the author of 8 books of fiction, creative nonfiction, and poetry. Most recently, Imagine a Death, Separation Anxiety, a finalist for the 2023 Oregon Book Award, and the wonderful Dreamlike, A Roundtable Unanimous Dreamers Chime In, a collaborative novel co-authored with Brenda Ijima. An essay co-authored with Jaron Woodland is featured in the recently released 4K restoration of Satan Tango. I didn't practice. Directed by Pilatar from Arholas Films. Her next book seeks to explore ties between the Korean cultural concept of Han, narratives of inherited trauma in the West, the Korean folk traditions and shamanic practices of her ancestors, especially rituals around death, the history and creation of Korean script Hangul, and revisions of the Korean myth of Princess Bari. Lee teaches workshops on inherited trauma, healing, and writing, bringing together elements from several different lineages as a Mesa-carrying practitioner of the Karo tradition of medicine work and as a practitioner of Zen Buddhism in the tradition of Plum Village and Thich Nhat Hanh. She also incorporates elements of ancestral healing, Korean shamanic ritualism, plant medicine and flower essence work, card readings and divination, and interspecies communication. She currently lives here in Portland, where she is the operational creative director at Corporeal Writing and an associate professor of creative writing at Portland State University, and a great inspiration to me personally as a writer, but also just a presence in the city. I feel so fortunate, I say this often, just to be overlapping with Janice here in space and time. Welcome, Janice.
Hi. Thank you so much, Jessica.
Move it all around.
Is that a little bit better? Awesome. My bio is too long. Sorry for making you read all that.
Do we need to turn that off? Oh yeah, it's turned all the way down, I think. No, how's that? Okay, there we go. That's pretty good.
Thank you all so much for being here. I just wanted to say, Christopher, when you were reading your first poem, I was thinking about my dog who's not afraid of fireworks, but is afraid of like when you step on a twig and that little cracking sound that it makes, you like jump 6 feet up in the air. So yeah. So I'm gonna read some poems and I'm gonna read some prose. I'm gonna start with a few poems. Why the prayer? Why the wind between the rolling weeds? He calls it smog, his eyes don't hurt yet. Wild sunflowers along the freeway, still turning towards the sun, still turning towards the flames while we turn our backs or have turned them already. Waiting for redemption, that was never the point. Why, we ask, as if we deserve answers, when we never listened hard enough, when we ran away from our own selves, expecting to find a home not in ashes. The sky is a reflection of the sea, not the other way around. When my dog snores, sunlight lambent on his nose, I return here to say yes. But my boxed up legs just cramp up insistently like the cramping is necessary, an affirmation, but really it's just a way of looking forward into the past, an ability to reconcile the principle of an emergency. If nothing for you is urgent, when do we know to hurry? When do we know to keep moving? Legs stretching out in various shapes around the bodies of dogs, always accommodating the other snoring bodies in the darkness. We know it's a good light if it brings out the glimmer in the dog's eyes. That, honestly, is all I need to see to know to keep the light on just a bit longer. It's a good light, looking forward to the inevitable apocalypse, just a collection of bad dreams that are already too familiar to lie in any future. Howl harder, that sinking gut feeling, that sinking below the soil feeling, your intestines disintegrating in the molten heat of the earth's core, your moans of pain that can't be heard by anyone but the crows because you've been stretched so thin. I remember when my mother told me to beware, all men are dogs, and to this day, the one I have loved the most is an actual dog. On the beach, waiting for the pieces of oxtail that I chew off and save for him. When the worms get up to my knees, I feel them wriggling in that in-between space where the soul resides, under the skin, under the kneecap, soft, chewy tendons. Sometimes we need more space to get away from that kind of love, to settle in again, back in the soil. It isn't so dark under it all, it isn't so damp, it isn't so unfamiliar. The grave we avoid every day is also the site of our redemption. Dying is living, and living is dying, and both are sacred, and the worms crawling up my nose while my corpse rots are sacred, and your bloodied knuckles still beating against a wall are sacred. Each and every breath is sacred, it never ends. There is no finality to history, no final movement, just the eternal movement of the sun, and your knees scraping across the concrete as you crawl tirelessly towards the horizon. I'm going to read a few really short bits of prose. And I was thinking about what to read today. The bits that kind of came up, a lot of these have to do with fire and fires, all sorts of fires. And like one thing that I want to say about that is, I think that I was being called to read these pieces not as a way to like make the reading relevant to what's happening, and not as a way to like glorify whatever is happening in the media, but actually as a way for me to call attention to the way that we have the privilege of being able to witness what is happening and not actually being in it, and to witness our complacency in all of that. And so I think there's just like a lot of work and processing that I want to do with you all in terms of how we have access to that privilege from a distance of what is happening. And then the other thing I was going to say is, so I'm trying to raise some money to send to direct relief funds for Maui. And so I'm going to personally pledge $10 for every book that is sold today, whether it is my book or whether it's a book for any of the other authors. The bookstore is handling all the sales. So regardless of how much the book is, I will pledge that. So please buy books. I think we're in a time where actually we need more art. And we need more poetry and more language and more articulation, even when it's difficult and challenged articulation. So I would love for you to be able to leave with some books, and I will pledge what I can.
I'll match it.
Awesome. So this is the fires. Are the fires any worse than they have been? How does one compare scale with scale, devastation with devastation? That is, there is a quietness of the spirit that knows to sit with the natural cycles of life and death. But do we measure aggravation by time, duration, or number of acres destroyed? Does anyone emerge and advance or stay still? Do any of our movements matter anymore? The fire is a place for encounters and fulfillment of one's worst fantasies. That sensation of being completely swallowed up and consumed by the person you love, when becoming becomes subsumed, and at least the burned body then becomes ash, then becomes dust and dirt again, then becomes something that will eventually regard those that modulate the air, modulate visions, modulate perspectives. Do you feel the heat? Can you breathe steadily? When was the last deep breath you took that didn't feel crammed with the remnants of hundreds of ghosts, all of the perished trees and creatures that were screaming, but you didn't hear them? How many fires are currently burning? How many individual dust motes circle and surge from under your feet, dazzling when struck by the sun, the black brilliance that layers and stacks on surfaces, concentrates of heat and more heat. Where are the lines between breaths? How do we separate the air you breathe from the air that another takes in at the same moment? Is the mixture of breeze a blasphemy or betrayal to purity? And when everything converges, what is the hot and blazing feeling that stirs deep within you? How long will they burn? Eternity, whose shredded copy is time, said Borges. That is, in another part of the country, a sinkhole has swallowed a significant portion of the continent. In another, an entire city has been submerged from flooding, and in another, it has not rained for years, and the process of thus is very, very slow. And mostly people do not want to panic, and mostly people do not want to disturb their lives too much or too often. We shouldn't normalize the chaos that might respond, so the grayness is easier to handle. The space leading up to the movement, a displacement that is made up of a series of smaller gestures, and the tall trees yet stand under the low skies, and tomorrow is when human life will meet its destiny. Thank you. I'm going to read two more short pieces, and this next one I'm going to read is actually very new. It's about to come out in. It's about to come out in the journal Feminist Formations. And actually, like you wouldn't believe me from like my CV, but in the last 2 years, I've actually done very little writing. So I've had a lot of books come out that were all writing that I did like before the pandemic, and I've actually had a lot of trouble writing. So this piece actually is kind of an amalgamation of like almost all the writing I've done in the last 2 years. It's very little, but anyways, that's what this is. And it's not exactly what you think it's about, but also it is. That's all I'll say. It's called Because Daughter is Also Mother. Sometimes a very old, familiar voice speaks or writes through me. Recently, these are the words that keep writing themselves. Dar do omanika, because daughter is also mother. Porin dar do omanika, because an abandoned daughter is also a mother. The words become unfamiliar memory, which becomes a geologic record of consolidation, reconsolidation, untangling, retangling, becoming again and again. When we remember, don't we become undone each time in the doing of the remembering? I remember learning to skip rocks by the river. I hardly remember my mother standing there showing me how. Her own corporeal disappearance has seeped into the memory of her corporeal body, but she isn't fading. As she became dust and ashes and sediment, the memory of her body too becomes dust and ashes and sediment, and becomes more absorbed into me, becomes more of me. We grow into each other, clasps of mother-daughter in non-linear time. More of my grief becomes her grief. The grief of my mother becomes my own. Dar do omanika. Once I was fire, choking on my own breast, the breast that kept the fire alive, the breast I consumed and that consumed me. I didn't know how to stop myself from wanting more and more until I saw my own reflection in the vast ocean, fire, the moon looking down, fire on the surface of the ocean, fire, the sky and smoke sifting through, fire. I couldn't stop myself from wanting more, from diving in to embrace myself, from wanting to be submerged in moonlight, so I didn't stop myself and arrived inside my own reflection as fire and evaporated as smoke and whisper. The vibrations of the whispers create ripples on the ocean's surface, and the ripples are the stories of everything I destroyed and witnessed as fire. Porin dar do omanika. On the morning after my death, I took a breath that was an unbreath. All of my dogs gathered on the bed beside me. Here, the times or dates of our deaths no longer intersecting at inappropriate times, but gathered like a pile of laundry, familiar, haphazard, full of bodily smell and history, the vehicles of our bodies gone like wispy smoke, but gathered nevertheless here. Dar do omanika, because daughter is also mother. Podin tayo manika, because an abandoned daughter is also a mother. Okay, so I'm gonna finish with one piece. Where is it? Sorry, too many post-it notes. I'm like, which one's the one for today? Okay. So the piece that I am finishing with comes from my collaborative novel, Brenda Ajima. It's about many things. I'm not giving you the context of like anything that I write, because I don't know if it matters. But this part is from a letter that a dog has written to the sky. Okay. The dog composes a letter to the sky in his dream, his head relaxed in the human girl's lap, paws twitching, heavy breathing, deep sighs. Dear sky, it seems that the humans have made themselves prisoners of their own obsession with progress. They've exiled themselves in the same system they're willing to die to protect, and yet the sources of their energy remain hidden. Do they remember the primordial chaos, the mud between their toes, the friction between two atoms, between two monsters in love, and thus the energetic degradation or sunken deep, the reconnection to the entanglement of every breath of air, every molecule of breath, every energetic pinball bouncing around within the engravings on the wall? You seem to hold us no matter how close to the edge we get. The humans are unable to avoid their own genius, and so they're repeatedly caught up in their own condition. The girl may yet learn how to participate in the sky and the water in a kind of swirling, but too, she may just get devoured trying to return to the mother, and perhaps my offering is as a witness, or as a mirror, or as a companion breather, or perhaps I just dream and continue to dream, the dreams saying more about the painting yet to come than a computer ever could. The sky paints an enormous painting, the entire surface of the universe, a giant canvas full of labor and dark green shades, variables of gray, a black dog running, the dog being himself and running and dreaming and sniffing and sleeping. The running dog divides the entire sky canvas with the lengths of its moving body, tail wagging in the wind and stirring the stars as it penetrates the night, and the sleeping body of the girl running until the girl wakes up and wonders where the dog has gone, where her mother is, wonders what is missing from her hands. I may write to you again, but only in dreams where articulation like this is possible. Until then, we abide in the realm of hidden meanings, only if you believe that everything is a system to be decoded. The realm of exile for all of us, for you too. Dog.
I love that one so much. Thank you, Janice. So we have books for sale. Yeah. Woo! And thank you everyone for gathering here with us. Thank you for being here. Thank you for being a part of this. And I hope when you're finished buying books, both author books, and if you see anything on the shelf that catches your fancy, if you're able to join us upstairs in the mask optional space, we have quite a spread. So I hope we can celebrate being together a little bit. Take care and thank you for coming. Good job.
Well, I figured that you would appreciate it.
Yeah.
I was gonna want to say something? Actually, Cedar is the character.
Well, I appreciate it that you like made fiction based on stuff that happened
Several times.
Yeah, I haven't been like.
This attraction is good, and that's what I was.
Like, I really feel that.
Yeah.
It's like,
I got it on the live stream. I always notice when I'm on it and I'm like, oh shit, I'm on it.